Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage CEO of ClearPath, Rich Powell.
Good afternoon. First, thanks so much to Her Excellency, Minister Balani, for those really helpful remarks on how Barakah has driven the energy transition so successfully in its early days. Next, I'll just say huge thanks to the Atlantic Council for hosting the Global Energy Forum and to our hosts, the UAE, for their leadership here at COP and their historic investments across the entire range of decarbonizing technologies. In partnership with the Atlantic Council, my organization, ClearPath, frequently brings groups of American policymakers here to the Emirates because there's really no place in the world that you can see so many decarbonizing technologies and projects in such a small place. Everything from advanced nuclear energy, which we'll talk about more momentarily, to carbon capture in the industrial sector, to enormous renewables developments, and so on and so on. I hope that soon the United States can match those efforts in such close proximity and in such close place, so we don't have to come all the way here. But it's been a terrific learning experience to bring so many policymakers here to see all of the success here in the Emirates. So today we're going to talk about the harder challenges in decarbonizing the global energy system. I like to say, as Miranda and I are often in dialogue about this, that the easy part of decarbonizing the energy system is over. So we've made great strides in a few technologies. We have found ways to substitute parts of our traditional energy system with things like wind and solar and light-duty passenger vehicles, where we have some of the tools, and the easy parts are now over. And now comes the hard part, unfortunately. Now comes the adolescence of the energy transition and of decarbonization, and that part will be harder, because now we actually have to think about decarbonizing entire energy systems. And that presents a profoundly different set of challenges in terms of business models and technologies and policies than that first easy part of the transition. So we're going to get into the hard part now, and thankfully we have the folks with all of the answers for the hard part. So here we are incredibly lucky to have, and I'm going to go in no particular order here. First we have Mohamed Braiki, the Chief Executive Officer of ENIC Consulting, Strategy, Program Management, and Excellence Director of obviously of the Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation. We have Roger Martella, the Chief Sustainability Officer of GE, needs no introduction, and also, I'm very proud to say, a member of ClearPath's Advisory Board. Sitting next to me, we have Roeland Baan, the CEO of Topsoe, the global catalysts and chemical innovator, leading the way on clean fuels of all types. And last but not least, we have Miranda Valentine, the strategic advisor to and former CEO of the Clean Energy Buyers Alliance, the trade organization representing the world's largest buyers of clean electricity and other energy services. So, Mohamed, perhaps we'll start with you. So you here in UAE have made enormous strides in the past decade in transforming your energy system. Can you start by telling everyone a little bit about the story of Barakah and the way that nuclear is leading the way in decarbonizing the electricity system here in the
Thank you. Yes. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody to Dubai, especially at this special time during COP, and where we're trying to decarbonize the different sectors here in the UAE. We started our nuclear journey back in 2009, 2010, and right now we have 3 APR 1400 reactors that are operating very safely, and the 4th reactor that we received an operating license for just about 3-4 weeks ago, and we're going to load the fuel and operate it very, very soon. Now, those 4 reactors at Barakah site, they're going to cover about 25% of the country's demand. Now, at the same time, this would cover 25% of the country's NDCs. That's the National Deterministic Contribution to lowering your CO2s. So it's a major, major accelerator in our net zero strategy and net zero pathway. At the same time, those 4 plants, they're avoiding about 22.4 million tons of CO2. 22.4 million tons of CO2 being avoided. This is equivalent to about 4.2 million cars off the road. So it's massive. It's a great accelerator to our energy system. It gives that abundance, reliability, electricity to our grid. At the same time, I'm happy to say that the data shows that the past 5 years, that the UAE has been the fastest putting clean energy to the grid per capita, and 75% of that is from those nuclear plants. So we're very proud of what we've been achieving, and also looking forward to grow further and more.
Fantastic. And from a standing start 10 years ago to 3 operational reactors already, it's a really extraordinary accomplishment. I wish we could build that quickly in the United States right now. But GE is going to change that. So why don't I go to Roger here next? Roger, your technology powers, you'll correct me, something like 30% of the world's electricity production today. And so you know more than anyone about building actual business models in all this. And so I think too often all of us technology enthusiasts and policy enthusiasts sort of forget that people are actually going to have to build sustainable business models if this is going to continue to develop and thrive. I wonder if you can share some thoughts about how to do that, especially in this globally challenging situation for building energy of all kinds.
Well, Rich, thank you very much. And to your point about could we do something in 10 years in the U.S. versus, I am fully confident that our team can do anything in 10 days in the UAE. 10 years would be tough in the U.S., but it's so impressive to see just an environment that was really focused on action. Congratulations to you and to all of the leaders of the UAE, because I know that history is going to look back on this in 5 years and say this was a pivotal moment in history, just like Paris was for the public sector. This was a pivotal moment for the private sector, where the UAE really brought together the private sector, stopped them from talking, moved them into action, and history will look back on this as one of those transformative moments, thanks to your leadership and others here. And Rich, thank you for asking the question about the business model. It'd be very easy for me to talk about our innovation and technology. I'm happy to do that, and my guess is if you've been sitting here, you've heard a lot of those things today. Hopefully we'll talk about small modular reactors or grid, because we're really excited about those. But you asked a question about the business model, and that's been maybe my observation, my learning so far in the first few days of COP is I know we're going to succeed for innovation and technology. We make some of the 1/3 of the world's energy, some of the most complicated equipment in the world. It is really hard, but we're going to solve for that. We always have, we always will, and we've got the best people in the world solving for it. But we have another challenge when it comes to innovation is we have to succeed as a business. And this is maybe the theme for me at COP28 and the interactions I'm having is people really wanting to understand. They know we're going to succeed in technology, but they want to understand how are we planning to succeed as a business, because our customers need us to succeed, our investors need us to succeed, and all the people who are counting on this innovation and technology, now that they can look and feel and touch it, they need to know that the businesses are actually going to come through and do this. And we give this a lot of thought. You talk about how hard this is, right? And so what do you do when something's really, really hard? You have to make it super, super simple. At least I do. And that's basically our strategy. We know how hard the technology is, but our business has to be very simple at this point if we're going to succeed. And like others, we went down the wrong path at one point where we were making it complicated. We were trying to compete with others and say, we want the biggest or the tallest or the most powerful, and we're going to keep one-upping each other. And we came to appreciate, that's not serving our customers. We may get some bragging rights here or there, but it's making our business more complicated. And we have to go back to the basics, and we have to go back to what do our customers need us to do. And renewable energy is perhaps the best example of this, where there has been a war. There still is to some extent. We're just not going to play in it about who can make the largest and the biggest and the most powerful. That's not what our customers care about. Our customers want the most reliable. They want to know if they buy something from us, it's going to work. It's going to work at this specification, and that's what they need to know. And that's what we need to know if we care about clean energy. We don't need to. Do you really care if we have the biggest turbine? You care about if we have a turbine that's going to work for lowering greenhouse gas emissions and providing, that's the goal, right? So we have, innovated our business model to one of a workhorse model, is what we call it. Rather than be all things to all people, we're going to have workhorse products that work in the most amount of environments. We're going to perfect those, and we're going to get behind them, and they're going to be the most reliable products in the world. You may not get exactly what you want in the specifications under this condition, but it's going to be a workhorse that you can count on. It's going to be reliable. And I think this is, I'd love to continue this conversation on innovation and technology. That's what I normally do. But I think this is now just as important, this notion of innovating as a business, succeeding for a business, making sure that companies like GE are there for our investors, our customers, and for all those who care about these issues in the day. And that's what gives me so much optimism and confidence, is knowing we have not only great engineers, but we have some of the best business leaders in the world who are making these really tough decisions to go against the temptation to be complicated, do things that are hard, and frankly, be simple. And I think that's what we need to do at this point.
Thank you so much, Roger. Roland, I'm going to turn to you to build on that. You know, so often we get locked into these conversations about whether the future ought to be beyond fuel and whether we should get away from burning anything in the future. And I think the reality is that a lot of the world finds fuel extremely useful. And so finding a way to make fuel clean at scale, efficiently, would be sort of a holy grail. And I know that that's something y'all spend an enormous amount of time on at Topsoe. And I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about the business and about how you see the challenges and the technology horizons.
Yeah, of course. So first, maybe a small correction. We are not necessarily a catalyst company. We are a technology company, 80 years old. We provide technologies for the refining and petrochemicals industries. Just to put it into perspective, about a quarter of all hydrogen produced in the world is going through our technology. About a third of all ammonia produced goes through our technology. Why do I mention those? Because those are exactly the building blocks that we see as crucial for the energy transition. The hydrogen as an alternative fuel, but as well, to your question, as a building block to build synthetic fuels. Because I agree, if you look at the hard-to-abate sectors, take aviation, it's not conceivable that you will see a plane flying on batteries. The issue with aviation as well is that 50% of the emissions comes from 8% of the flights, which are the intercontinentals. So the only thing you can do is create sustainable aviation fuels. And that can be either from bio, which is currently the favorite route, but ultimately it will have to come from power to liquids, so power to fuel, where you synthesize hydrogen into a jet fuel. I think though that, and this is how we look at Topsoe at things, I very often feel a little bit in Topsoe like one of these guys in a bazaar that opens his coat and says, "Psst, do you want to buy this?" Because we have all these different technologies that are feedstock agnostic, because we do believe that we have a short window in this decade where we have to very quickly decarbonize, and for that you will probably need to use things like natural gas that you turn into blue hydrogen as a building block. You need bio, and ultimately you go to the power to X solutions.
Miranda, I wonder, can I turn to you? Your membership at SIBA has really evolved from, again, looking at these very specific small sets of technologies with sort of very near-term goals, now to thinking much more holistically about clean grids, entire clean sectors. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit of, SIBA's story and SIBA's evolution over the last couple of years as folks have started to understand this more difficult next phase.
Sure, and thank you to Rich and ClearPath and the Atlantic Council for including the voice of large energy customers on the stage today with my esteemed colleagues. The Clean Energy Buyers Alliance is an association of the largest clean energy users in the United States. We include corporate customers, of course, commercial and industrial, but also universities, cities, and federal government agencies as well, because in the United States, the federal government is actually the largest energy customer as well as policymaker. We do have global programs as well, so we are working around the world. I think I'm going to touch on a couple of things that my colleagues have brought up, but the first fundamental question is, do energy customers even matter? Or can we solve this with the right technology, the right policy, and the right financial incentives? And I would posit that, yes, indeed, large energy customers can both accelerate the carbon-free energy future, and now, I'm not even going to start saying the carbon-free energy future, the carbon-free energy system of today. And I think we've got clear evidence of that by what large energy customers have done with the renewable energy industry. So while it is easy to say now it's easy to buy wind and solar, I think looking at wind and solar as an example for what we now need to do with some of the newer technologies like advanced modular reactors, like hydrogen, is a important case study, because 10 and 15 years ago, there was no way for energy customers to directly buy much more expensive wind and solar. Today, those business models exist. They have been simplified such that many large energy customers can partake in these business models, and the cost of the technologies have come down such that it's no longer just the big leading companies to do that. So I'm going to take your call to make it simple. From the energy customer perspective, it is quite simple. They need really two things. They need to be able to have choice in what they buy, which is not true everywhere. And they need to get credit, so to speak, whether that's reputational credit, whether that's credit in their greenhouse gas accounting. And if those two things exist, the rest can be created by the business community. Rich, you alluded to the evolution. 10 years ago, when the Clean Energy Buyers Alliance was first conceived, the focus at that time was accelerating the deployment of new wind and solar. Wind and solar in the United States were a very, very tiny percentage of the assets on the grid at that time. And so a lot of focus was on renewable energy. The evolution has shifted from new wind and solar to now large energy customers being very focused on having material decarbonization impact. Wind and solar, of course, will be a part of that in most parts of the world. But material decarbonization impact says, let's look at what project, maybe it's an existing large-scale nuclear project, maybe it's an existing hydropower project, maybe it's leaning into a new small modular reactor, even though it's more expensive today, like wind and solar were 10 and 15 years ago. And let's bring the whole system along so that the whole system is providing zero carbon grid to every energy customer everywhere in the world. And that is quite a significant evolution in the last 10 to 15 years of the thinking of large energy customers. One last thing on the question of, do energy customers matter? In 2022, in the United States, large energy customers announced 17 gigawatts of new wind and solar. 17 gigawatts of new wind and solar capacity is the equivalent of about 70% of all the new carbon-free capacity that was added to the grid in that year. If you look back over the course of about 10 years, all of the 71 gigawatts announced in the United States, it's 150 gigawatts globally. In the United States, that 71 gigawatts is almost 42% of all the capacity, zero carbon capacity added during that time. So I would stipulate that energy customers matter. They can accelerate what the goals that the governments are setting. They can bring things to market, and the leaders can develop the new business models in such a way that the learners can follow and then accelerate the scale.
Fantastic. Mohamed, I would love to come back to you. So, again, thinking about the hard things and developing entire clean electricity systems, for example, as Miranda just said, part of that is developing the underlying regulatory frameworks. Obviously, this is an experience you've just had very, very quickly in the nuclear space. It's an experience anyone trying to do carbon capture at scale will have to have the regime to capture and sequester CO2. It's the experience in the U.S. with higher and higher penetrations of renewables and how to make markets work with zero marginal cost resources. Can you, and especially thinking of the global perspective and sort of pursuing the nuclear route, can you give any advice to, to energy policymakers in the room or watching from around the world on how to start the nuclear journey this quickly? Do you have any advice? Is that transferable to other economies thinking of taking this on?
I can tell you our story. How did we start? Back in 2009, when we established Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation. Before we established the Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation, we established the Federation Nuclear of Energy, which is our regulator. So both entities, imagine two small children growing up together, learning together. So that helped a lot to stimulate and strengthen the communication between us. That's one of the key pillars for the success we experienced. At the same time, our regulator had a lot of different connections through different regulators throughout the world. So our plants are Korean technologies, so our regulator connected with the Korean regulator. At the same time, they have connections with the NRC in the US and different others to put the right regulations in place to support the program. So here is how the regulation body has been established here at the EU with our program. At the same time, globally speaking, right now, you might have heard that the IAA, they are managing this very important initiatives, which is to harmonize the licensing and harmonize the regulatory framework throughout the world. And that would help a lot. Different nuclear technologies, SMRs, as Roger mentioned, and that would ease up the scale also. So there are different initiatives that you could see going to help the whole nuclear sector throughout the world, especially now that many other countries are embarking on their nuclear journey. For different reasons, mainly for energy security and also to get to their net zero ambition. So having said that, anything that we could do and help and consult in this arena when it comes to regulatory framework, establishing the right strategies, the right roadmaps, to start at the right foundation to build upon it. And that's something that's very, very important. And one of the key success factors for our program also was the obvious government and leadership support. And embarking on a critical infrastructure project would need government support. And we're lucky enough with our agile and supportive government that we supported us all the way. Of course, and I was lucky enough, honestly, I've been in this organization for about 12 years now, and I've seen the different strategies and the waves from where we poured concrete, from construction, all the way to commissioning and being operational ready, and then operating the plants to fuel load, and then operating those plants safely. And now until we had our outages throughout the different times that we have, and it's been quite a very embarking, really exciting journey. And as I always say, 12 years in the nuclear business, never a boring day. And it's truly remarkable because we see the results. We see how we are decarbonizing the grid. As I said, it's a major accelerator to get to our net zero. And the future is promising. The future is promising because we're looking how the SMRs, as Roger mentioned, the SMRs are the small modular reactors. And they're smaller in size, smaller also in capacity, they're modular, they have a passive safety systems that you could move them where you need them. And the key thing here, they have different applicabilities. So you could move them, use them to produce electrons, you could use them to produce green molecules, you could use them to produce hydrogen, you could use them for the heat process and for different downstream business in that matter. And I think that would be a game changer. And it would be important for us as an industry to come together and see how we could harmonize and ease the way for this industry to scale up, because this is how we're going to get to our net zero.
I love that you brought up that last point about situating nuclear's role in decarbonizing the broader system, particularly with clean chemicals, clean hydrogen, clean fuels. I'm going to move to lightning round now because we're getting the sign that we have to start moving quickly. So I'm going to, Roeland, Roger, I'm going to ask you this together. Clearly, nuclear as a source of clean electricity could be very helpful for things like electrolysis at scale, potentially very efficient. running continuously. I'm curious from a market perspective, are you seeing an interest in this idea of nuclear as a base load source for clean fuel production?
Absolutely. I mean, we have a high temperature electrolysis technology which fits absolutely like a glove with nuclear, because the low heat that is residual from the process will make the electrolysis system 35% more efficient. So it is absolutely something that works, and nuclear, in our view, not only because of that, but in general, is absolutely part of the solution.
Everybody loves a comeback story, and I think nuclear has been the comeback story of the last 18 months. And we've also said that we thought nuclear would be one of the biggest headlines coming out of COP28. And thanks to Mohamed and His Excellency Al Hamadi, that's already proven to be true in the first few days here. And existing nuclear is critically important. I think no one represents that better or conventional nuclear than UAE. But the small modular reactors is really where driving a lot of demand and interest. And Mohamed did such a great job describing them. But I would also just add the notion of a common design. That's really the game changer as well. Just we're going to have one design. We can adapt it to different places in the world. And these are about the size of a football field. And so in Canada, we're going to build 5 or 6 of them next to each other. Virginia is looking at data centers where they'll need 1 gigawatt of capacity. They'll build 3 of them right there next to a data center. So this is the comeback story. And I don't think there's any technology I feel more optimistic or as ambitious about. And as Rich said at the outset, if you want to look at innovation, if you want to look at people who actually deliver and get it done, you look at the UAE. And if you hear this commitment to nuclear, I don't need to add anything onto that. I think that speaks for itself.
All right, final question from Miranda. There's one other comeback story, I hope, in process, which is CCS, CCUS, carbon management, carbon capture, technology that's always sort of on the cusp, but is always continuing to struggle to gain traction. You've been a huge leader amongst the energy buyers of the world in mainstreaming the idea that nuclear is okay and that folks could think beyond just wind and solar. I'm going to ask you, maybe a tough question. Could carbon capture be next? Right? Could we imagine a world where people are just seamlessly buying gas with carbon capture alongside nuclear, alongside wind and solar and geothermal and everything else? Or is carbon capture different? Do you think that this could be the next technology that's just comes into full acceptance and we see scale alongside everything else? One simple last quick question.
Rich knows he has to tell me to keep it quick. That is a complicated question. I do think it is tougher for large clean energy customers right now in the current environment to support continued fossil extraction. Right now in the current environment, that is challenging. If we can get to a place where it is, as I said at the outset, both they have a choice to buy it and they can get credit for it, and it is credible in contributing to the zero carbon energy system, I think that changes the game for energy customers. Similarly, 5 years ago, we were not at a point where large energy customers were open to accepting nuclear as an option. And today, we see Google making statements, we see Microsoft signing forward contracts for nuclear fusion, thank you, as well as 2 deals for existing nuclear. That was not sort of socially acceptable 5 years ago. So if we can change the narrative and it has to be scientifically true, that continual fossil extraction with safe carbon capture and storage and utilization that is long-term and permanent, I think we can change the conversation for energy customers.
There's the gauntlet. That's a productive gauntlet. A last word from
Yes.
Mohamed?
I want to follow up on the point that where nuclear is back. 3 days ago, which marks our National Day also, we facilitated this, over 20 governments' declaration of tripling nuclear capacity in the world, which is remarkable. And this only could happen here in Dubai, where we're getting people together and to do remarkable things. Also, there are a lot of innovation you could do throughout, not just in technology, but also to incentivize and put the policies together for people to get to that clean source of energy. For example, we've been auctioning green certificates from clean resources here in the country, where the biggest customer is our oil and gas industry. So they've been buying a lot of those green certificates to decarbonize their sector. And there are many other examples that we could do. So I would just want to conclude with the theme of this COP, which is to unite, act, and deliver. So we're all here, let's all unite and work together. Let's act and take an action towards decarbonization and reaching our net zero targets, and let's deliver, please. So this is what I want to conclude with.
Fantastic final words, final inspiration. Roeland, Mohamed, Roger, Miranda, thank you so much for a terrific conversation. And thanks again to the Atlantic Council for convening this.